Hello everyone, this is PK Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another fun video for you where I will discuss this time who I deem were the most hottest and attractive movie actresses from the 2010s decade. Now I've done previous videos for both the 1990s and the 2000 decades, and you can list those within my channel. I will leave the links all within the descriptions, and as with both of those videos as well, all of these choices within this video are done in good taste. All the images are safe for work, for no worries on this account, and as with that video I will also take into account the profile of these actresses, how successful they've been at the box office in terms of their movies, as well as their looks and attractiveness as well. So it's all done in all very good spirits. If you have any other suggestions or lists, whether it's television actresses from a different era or from another franchise, and you'd like to see me cover those as well, then also let me know within the comments. So without further ado, let's begin this countdown of the actresses who I deem were the most attractive and sexiest and hottest women within the 2010s decade. Now the first entry on this list is Gal Gadot. Initially starting off as a model and serving 2 years under the Israeli Defense Forces, she first came to prominence with small appearances as Giselle in the Fast and Furious franchise. She then of course reached mainstream recognition being cast as Wonder Woman for the DC Cinematic Universe created primarily by Zack Snyder. We saw her make her first appearance at the climactic battle of Batman vs Superman, and she gained goodwill and reception on there. There was initial backlash from her casting. Maybe many people were concerned about her appearance, her slim figure, and also her lack of acting experience, but Gal Gadot managed to prove everybody wrong, and following the goodwill from Batman vs Superman, she then continued with the mega successful Wonder Woman movie in 2017, which grossed over 820 million at the box office, and this really propelled her to mainstream recognition throughout audiences. And she continued appearances of course in the Justice League movie, and as we've seen recently of course with the Zack Snyder Justice League version as well. So with her statuesque height and her exotic looks and her very thick Israeli accent, she ended up looking completely like Wonder Woman. She's got a very stunning diva beauty about her, and of course I think her accent adds to her overall attraction. So she has had smaller roles in the likes of 999 and Criminal with Kevin Costner and Keeping Up with the Joneses as well, but it's primarily at the moment the Wonder Woman role that has become her signature role throughout this decade. So at the moment she's proven to be very popular with audiences, and she's got the potential, I believe, to be the next leading actress within the next decade. She's got future appearances coming up as Cleopatra alongside Patty Jenkins directing once more. I'm absolutely certain that we will get a third Wonder Woman movie despite the mixed reaction of the sequel, and also she's going to star in the thriller Red Notice alongside Dwayne Johnson and Ryan Reynolds, and that's due to come on Netflix as well. So at this moment in time, yes, Gal Gadot is one of the most prominent actresses of this previous decade, and I'm pretty sure she's going to come on to greater success for the next decade as well. So very tall, very statuesque, and very stunning in her beauty. Like, she's a much more of a worthwhile entry on this list. The next entry on this list is Zoe Saldana. Initially having small roles in the early 2000s, particularly with the first parts of the Caribbean film, she then rose to stardom with two huge movies in 2009. The first of these of course was the Star Trek reboot by JJ Abrams in 2009, where she starred in the role as Uhura, and this is very much of a upgrade, very much of an Elseworld modern day take on the Star Trek franchise, and it proved to be very successful amongst audiences, grossing over 350 million at the box office. And a lot of people liked Zoe's interpretations. She's very sexy, very slim. On here she had the knee-high boots and the short skirt, very reminiscent of Uhura's appearance in the original series, and a lot of people likened her role as the character. She then of course continued this later on, starring in Avatar, which of course at the time was the highest grossing movie at all time, grossing over 2.7 billion at the box office. She did have other roles, including the likes of The Losers with Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and she had a lead role in Columbiana, but these were really smaller, less recognised roles, and they weren't very performing that well at the box office. She did return for the sequel of the Star Trek Into Darkness in 2013, and that was another big box office hit. And then she really found another signature role in 2014 as Gamora in the Marvel space comedy Guardians of the Galaxy, proving to be a sensational box office blockbuster grossing over 700 million at the box office, and many audiences took a lot to a lot of these characters. They very much liked the chemistry and dynamic between the two, and she scored a major role and appearance within the MCU as Gamora, all covered in a kind of green screen, but despite that she looked very hot, very attractive as well. And she continued with her appearances in the Guardians of the Galaxy sequel in 2017, and of course later on appearing in both Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame as well. And this really solidified her as a very attractive actress throughout as well. So she's very slim, very beautiful, and Zoe Saldana, I think, is another fine entry on this list. We then go on to the next entry on this list, and that is Catherine Winnick. Very tall, stunning, blonde actress. She had appeared in multiple films prior to 2010, but she really came to her biggest role so far in the Vikings television series that ran from 2013 to 2020. But she has also had many appearances with movies. When we look at The Dark Tower, starring alongside Matthew McConaughey and Idris Elba. She also starred with Polar with Mads Mikkelsen, the Netflix production, Speed Kills, where she's played the wife alongside ex-gangster John Travolta, and also The Marksman, where she starred alongside Liam Neeson. So she's got this very pretty, very stunning look about her, and maybe we will see her take on more prominent leading roles in movies throughout the next decade as well. But I just think she's a fine addition to this list. Primarily a television actress, but now she's branched a lot more into movies, so it's very welcome to see. So one of my favourite picks of the actresses within this decade. So I also believe that Catherine Winnick is a fine choice on this list. We then go on to the next entry on this list, and that is Eiza Gonzalez. The stunning Mexican actress didn't really appear on the radar until making an appearance in the From Dusk Till Dawn television series in 2013, produced by Robert Rodriguez. Of course, this was a follow-on from the movies that he originally saw with George Clooney back in the 1990s, and it's very appropriate that she played, I believe, the character played by originally by Salma Hayek in that movie, who was one of my picks for the 1990s hottest actresses, and she was very hot in that film. And yeah, Eiza Gonzalez is very similar to Salma Hayek. She's got that very exotic look about her, and she had more prominent roles without the 2010s decades in Baby Driver. She also had Alita Battle Angel, and she also made an appearance in Hobbs and Shaw, starring alongside Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham, and she looked very hot in that as well. And the one that I noticed her most recently was the recent comic book adaptation Bloodshot, where she starred alongside Vin Diesel, and she's looking very hot on them, where she's wearing these very tight black costumes and combat gear. She looks very nice, very stunning and attractive on there. And you can also check out my review of the Bloodshot movie on my channel as well if you go to the movie reviews playlist. But hopefully she can go on now and become a much more prominent actress within the next decade. I think she's currently due next to star in the Godzilla vs Kong blockbuster movie, due to hit HBO Max very soon. I believe that's early April that we will see that movie coming out, so we'll see how she performs on there. But for me, just very stunning, very attractive, very just long black hair, very statuesque like figure, and very much of a worthwhile addition on this list as well. We then go on to the next entry on this list, and I think for many they can agree that this is a very much of a agreeable choice in this breakdown of most attractive actresses within this decade, and that is Mila Kunis, the very stunning American actress. We all came to know her very much so way back in the late 90s in that 70s show. This is a show that I believe we all watched throughout, and she really was the most successful cast member from that show who was able to break into mainstream movies, and she had a string of prominent films. If we look at The Book of Eli, which starred Denzel Washington, a very much of a post-apocalyptic movie directed by the Hughes brothers. She later on starred in Black Swan alongside Natalie Portman, who won an Oscar for that role, and I believe Mila Kunis was Oscar nominated for Best Supporting Actress as well, and she gained a lot of kudos but credibility for her performance in that role. She had Friends with Benefits, the very light breezy romantic comedy starring alongside Justin Timberlake. She starred alongside Ted, which was a massive blockbuster comedy in the early 2000s starring alongside Mark Wahlberg and Seth Rogen. And then she started to land some major lead roles, in particular with Jupiter Ascending, starring alongside Channing Tatum and directed by the Wachowski brothers, and also the Bad Mums movies, which are very successful at the box office. And I think, yeah, I look at Mila Kunis and she's got a very small, petite size about her, but she's still got that very stunning, piercing look about her. She's very gorgeous and she's also very sweet. And this really was her most successful run, I think, throughout movies. I think she has more smaller roles post this decade. She doesn't really appear as such in big movies as what she did within this decade, but without doubt the most successful actress to come from the 70s show, and without question one of the most hottest and attractive actresses, certainly for me, throughout this past decade. So a worthwhile entry on this list in Mila Kunis. We now go on to, without doubt, one of the most hottest actresses of this decade and still today, and that is for me Hayley Atwell. Very lush looks, along with a very busty, curvaceous figure and that classic beautiful looks about her. Hayley Atwell commands the attention whenever she's on screen. She previously had a background more in theatrical productions, but she came to prime recognition in the role as Peggy Carter in Captain America: The First Avenger in 2011, and I can remember I noticed her straight away for her figure and the confidence that she played throughout the role as Peggy, and she is a very good performance, and I think it's overall a very good entry to Captain America: First Avengers. Very much more of the very consistent and more enjoyable movies within the MCU, and she played the role very well and people very likened to her character, very much so that she was able to garner her own series playing Peggy Carter, which was titled Agent Carter, and it ran for 2 seasons for ABC. And overall I thought that's a very enjoyable, entertaining series. This is of course played the origin of Peggy Carter prior to her becoming the founder of S.H.I.E.L.D. and I think Hayley Atwell owns that role. She completely has it with confidence. She just looks fabulous, even though we're in much more of a 1940s settings, and this proved to be very popular amongst fans as well, and I think very much everybody loved Hayley within the role. And I think it's very sad that they weren't able to somehow modernise the character and integrate it more within the current continuity within the MCU. Now, she would go on to make further appearances as Peggy Carter later on in Winter Soldier, and also I believe in various end credits within Ant-Man, and of course if you watch Avengers Endgame, she appears very much at the end sequence where, spoiler alert, where we see Captain America finally reunite with Peggy Carter once again. So really, I think she's just a stunning actress. She's got a fabulous figure. I always love it when we see British actresses thrive within the Hollywood and become very prominent within the industry as well. Now, I do know going forward she's signed now to star in the future Mission Impossible films, both the 7th and 8th movies. I believe the 7th movie they're continuing to film as well, so it'll be very interesting to see what kind of role that Hayley Atwell plays throughout the role, and hopefully can garner more success and lead her to take on more leading roles within the next decade as well. So just a super sexy woman, very compelling to watch as an actress, great fantastic figure, very busty, very vivacious and very beautiful, and most definitely one of the hottest actresses, and not only that, one of the hottest women I believe throughout the 2010 decade. We now go on to the second highest entry on this list, and to be honest, there'll be many people that would consider this actress to be number one in terms of the hottest actress within the 2010s decade, and that is of course Margot Robbie. The Australian actress was largely unknown prior to this decade, and then of course she made her electrifying appearance in Martin Scorsese's Wolf of Wall Street epic, and I think I can speak for nearly everyone watching when you first see her appear in the opening scenes throughout this movie. It is truly jaw-dropping. She's just simply stunning, and really you couldn't take her eyes off her whenever she appeared on the screen on here. And it's funny, even the character that Leonardo DiCaprio plays, he even acknowledges how hot and stunning she looks. She just got a fantastic figure. She had those classic blonde Barbie doll kind of looks. She's just stunningly attractive throughout this whole movie, and to be fair, she performs quite well. The Boston accent wasn't maybe completely convincing. She did come to major recognition following the success of this movie, and this propelled her to many feature roles throughout this decade, including starring alongside Will Smith in Focus. She had The Legend of Tarzan later on with Alexander Skarsgård in the main role, and she really later on in this decade found her signature role as the comic book fan favourite character Harley Quinn, first full starring in Suicide Squad amongst a major casting ensemble. And even though the movie had a very lukewarm critical reception, it was a massive box office success, grossing over 750 at the box office. And I think this was largely due to Margot Robbie's performance as Harley Quinn. Everybody visualized her, particularly I think it was more the New 52 interpretation of the character. And yeah, I think she performed very well. She's a very good Harley Quinn, I believe. She continued the role later on in The Birds of Prey, The Fabulous Emancipation of Harley Quinn, to middling box office, but I think people still regard Margot Robbie as fantastic within the role, and she will continue this performance in the Suicide Squad sequel, which I believe is due for release later on in 2021 as well. So without doubt now, she's one of the most established actresses, and she's had continued roles, especially in Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, starring alongside Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt as well, and she's fabulous in that role. She played the character of Sharon Tate as well. And yeah, without question now, she is one of the most established actresses, one of the most highest paid actresses as well. She's just incredibly beautiful, incredibly stunning, clearly in her prime now, and I think she will go on. She just needs to establish more of her leading roles. Again, like Harley Quinn, find another signature role. And yeah, she's got very much of a similarity in terms of a Michelle Pfeiffer, I think, when Michelle Pfeiffer was in her prime, and I see a lot of similarities in terms of her look with Margot Robbie as well, for just an utterly stunning, very hot, very sexual woman and actress as well. And without doubt, a very considered entry without this list. And like I said, many people would consider her to be number one. I perhaps put her at number two, because I consider now the number one on this list. And we come to the first choice within this breakdown, and I think if we're all being honest, not only in terms of her looks but also in terms of her profile and career, this is pretty much an undisputed choice within this breakdown. The number one entry on this list, without doubt, is Scarlett Johansson. Already an established actress prior to this decade, starring in critically acclaimed films such as Girl with a Pearl Earring and also Lost in Translation, The Prestige, directed by Christopher Nolan, starring alongside Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale, and also Vicky Cristina Barcelona, starring alongside Javier Bardem and Penelope Cruz. So prior to this decade, Scarlett Johansson had already a massive following and highly recognition as an established actress. And then she would of course begin this decade on the path to be mega stardom, and that is of course with the role as Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow, the massive comic book character as part of the MCU, starting off primarily in Iron Man 2. That's when I really noticed her, and you can see that straight away. She has that long perm brown hair, and of course she just looks incredible in the Black Widow suit. Very curvy, very slim, very toned as well, but she's also got those luscious looks about her, just extremely sexy. And Scarlett Johansson plays the character with a lot of sexual confidence, and I think that is something that was very welcome within comic book industries. They never shied away from the fact that Black Widow was very hot, very sexy, very savvy as well, and I think that's something to be credited, that they were able to let Scarlett Johansson imbue such a confidence within the character, and she would really continue with that right the way through the MCU. So if we look at her other appearances at the likes of Captain America, The Winter Soldier, and later on of course with the two Avengers movies, Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron, where we got much more of a backstory within the character, and she had much more smaller roles, I would say, in Avengers in Infinity War, but before having a much more impactful appearance, of course, within Avengers Endgame. And this is really important, her role as Black Widow, because prior to Natasha Romanoff, still the most iconic female superhero in terms of modern day culture was of course Wonder Woman, but now in Black Widow we could easily say that in terms of modern day movies and modern day entertainment, Black Widow, her interpretation of the characters, is without doubt the most, or one of the most iconic female superheroes without doubt within modern day culture, and that's a lot to do with Scarlett Johansson and her performance in the role. And despite the role as Black Widow, she still was able to have major success later on as a leading actress outside the MCU, when we see it struggle for so many other actresses involved. And she had huge box office success in 2014 in the action science fiction thriller Lucy, directed by Luke Besson and starring alongside Morgan Freeman. She also had major critically acclaimed roles in Under the Skin, and also later on in this decade Marriage Story, starring alongside Adam Driver, and she also received another nomination for Best Actress at the Academy Awards. She received over $10 million to take the lead in the Ghost in the Shell adaptation of the famous anime, and I actually think that was underrated. I know there was a lot of controversy surrounding the casting of Scarlett Johansson roles. Many people were claiming it was whitewashing. I never subscribed to that fact, and I think people held that a lot against that movie. But I think in that film, Scarlett Johansson performs very well. She looks great and fabulous in the very infamous skin tight costume in the opening sequence of that movie, and I actually think she performed very well, and that's actually a very good movie adaptation of the anime as well. She also starred in this decade in Don John alongside Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and this is a personal favourite for me because I just think this is the hottest she's ever looked. You know, if you look at this film, it's an average film, to be fair. It's not really that spectacular in terms of storyline, but in this movie, Scarlett Johansson just looks incredible in every scene, whether you see her in the opening entrance where she's in the club and everybody's trying to chat her up. She's got a very figure hugging pink outfit that she wears on here, and later when we see her in the gym and when she's meeting Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character in the street, she just looks amazing. I really couldn't take my eyes off her throughout this movie. I really believe that for all the hotness that she showed as Black Widow, this was the most sexiest that she's looked within Don John as well. So she really, for me, has become the most prominent and really is the most successful actress throughout the 2010 decade, and she really underlined how well she was able to build the Black Widow character, where she was managed to merit her own movie, Black Widow, of course, the solo movie, which was due to come out in May in 2020, but of course due to the COVID outbreak that movie has been delayed. I think if we're being honest, this was a long movie overdue. I think the Black Widow solo movie really should have happened shortly after Winter Soldier, when she was gaining massive popularity with the character. But okay, we'll get the Black Widow in again, and it will further underline, I believe, just how hot and sexy Scarlett Johansson continues to be, and I'm pretty sure she will score major movie roles within the next decade. So that's without question, for me, Scarlett Johansson, definitely the most leading actress of the decade, and without question the hottest, sexiest actress of the 2010 decade as well. So that sums up my overall breakdown who I deem to be the most attractive and sexiest and hottest female actresses throughout the 2010 decade. Let me know what you think in the comments below, whether you agree with my choices. If you think there's any actresses that I've missed within this countdown, let me know and I will do a follow-up video as well. As I mentioned before, you can also check out previous lists of the 1990s and the 2010s decades as well. If I've got time, I may do a similar list for the 1980s decade, and also I may do a breakdown of who I believe were the hottest television actresses of certain decades as well. If you do enjoy these series of videos, let me know in the comments below. Your feedback is also appreciated. Please also hit those like and subscribe buttons and notifications, and help me provide you with more high quality like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.